My name is Amy McInnes. This is The Art of Plenty, a podcast where we talk about how to get the most out of your life, how to be the person that you were meant to be, and how to do the things that you were meant to do. I am a mother of 5, an entrepreneur, a registered clinical counselor, and a woman who has spent her life devoted to self-improvement and essentially becoming and being who I've always been meant to be. Today, we are going to dive into kids and helping kids manage their anxieties, manage their fears. As a mom of 5, this is something that I have had to do on many occasions. And this one particular situation I want to tell you about is when my daughter's anxiety almost ruined a family holiday. Now, before I get into telling you about that situation, I just want to differentiate what stress is from anxiety, because it seems like, myself included, that when we talk about this, we often just exchange those words for one another. We use stress instead of anxiety. We use anxiety instead of stress. So for the purpose of understanding, I just want to differentiate them. Stress is an external situation that creates pressure. The way that we respond to that pressure can be an anxious response. So we can have anxiety because of the things that are putting pressure on us. A few years ago, we were going to the Kettle Valley to bike in the Myra Canyon. Now, this is an amazing bike ride because they've converted an old railroad track into riding. And in this portion of the canyon, there is 18 trestles that you ride across. But it's not a long ride. It happens, and I think it's like around 20 kilometers, and that might be in and out. There are ways to keep riding through the whole route and end up somewhere else, and you can do the whole car shuttling thing, which is what our holiday was originally going to be. You see, a few years before that, I was talking with family friends who had done this ride with their family, and I don't know, when they were talking about it, it was just one of those things that like sparked this desire in me where I thought, wow, that sounds so awesome. The whole family can go on this bike ride together. You can stop along the way, you can camp, and it's not a big ride. So you can ride for a portion. And at that time when they were doing it, I believe they had a kid that was still on a run bike. So when they told me this story, I thought, oh, that sounds like such a fun trip. And I started to do some investigating about what would this look like and started to formulate this plan that our family would go on a similar trip. But at that time I had babies, which is probably why I was spending time daydreaming about all of the things that we would be able to do. Because when you have a baby, you sit around a lot because they sleep and they breastfeed and you spend a lot of downtime with your brain, or at least I did. So planning and thinking about the potential of doing this trip was exciting for me. And we had finally arrived. We had finally gotten to the age where our youngest could have either done it on a run bike or we had one of those tag-along bikes, which the kid's on that back trailer bike and it's attached to a parent bike. So this was the year. And I was so excited because everything was looking like it was going to happen for us. It was towards the end of June. My parents were also excited and interested in coming along. So we made out this plan to do this trip. Now, here's what happens the first week of June. My older daughter, has an injury and she dislocates her knee. And it's not just one of those like pop in and pop out. Not that that isn't awful in itself. But when it popped out, it actually tore one of her ligaments or tendons. I am not a doctor, please. I do not remember the specificities of what the injury was. But what I do remember is a little piece of her kneecap actually tore right off from her kneecap, and that part was where the tendon had torn, or the ligament. So the healing process wasn't just a matter of dealing with the popping in and out. It was also to deal with this portion of her knee that had to heal. And when we first went to Emerge, they totally missed it. They had no sniff. So when we got her into physio a week later, we realized that, oh, this knee, there's something wrong here. And then we had more x-rays, and that's when they discovered that a piece of the kneecap had actually come off her kneecap. So now we have like a week before we are going away on this bike trip, and now we have a kid that her knee doesn't work. And you need a knee when you're biking. We looked for different options. So we found we were looking up online, and we found bikes where people sit in the front, and we're like, oh, can we convert one of the old Chariots to fit this kid in so that she can come? Because she really wants to be there. And we really want her to be there because we've been talking about this, and our family trips at that time don't happen very often when we all get to go somewhere. Usually it's different portions that are going places for sports and activities. So this was a big deal for our family, and we're very excited because it was coming up at the end of school. So we're looking for bike options, trying to figure out what we can do. And we find this crank bike. I can't remember if it was on Craigslist or some kind of place where you can sell items, like maybe it was Marketplace or something like that. So we find this crank bike, and great news, it is 30 minutes from the Kettle Valley. So it is pretty much on the way to our bike trip. So we make the decision that we're going to go for it, and we will pick this bike up en route. We go there, we get to the person's house. The bike is amazing. And all of my kids to this day love the crank bike because you just sit there and your legs like rest up, and it's like all arm pumps, and it's phenomenal. The kids love it. We all have a ridiculous time riding that bike. It is so fun, and it is such a different type of workout. And we modified the plan, so we knew we weren't going to be camping en route because we just weren't sure how our daughter with the knee injury was going to feel about camping. And so we decided we would go in, do the tresses, bike back out on the tresses, and then camp close by rather than ride from camp to camp. So we modified the trip. We got a new bike, and now we're there. We are at the trailhead, and we are ready to go. Now, in all of this kerfuffle, we did not have a lot of time to actually get the kids on bikes and riding on a regular basis. We had done very little with the trailer bike, and because he had been riding a run bike, so we were trying to get him to practice on the trail ride bike. But we just didn't have the time because with my daughter's injury and we were traveling for physio, it just didn't work out. So what we had set out to do to prepare for the trip was totally washed aside, but we were going for it anyways because when you have a family with 5 kids, if you do not push through this type of adversity, you don't end up doing anything. In fact, we often say somebody's always crying. And I mean, it's better now because our kids are older. But every time we would do something, somebody would be crying, somebody would be angry, somebody would be upset. And that's just a part of it. And you just work through it because if you wait for everything to be perfect, all you do is wait. So there we are, and we're all going, and we start out. So a couple of the kids are riding ahead. I'm riding with them. I've got the trailer bike, and my husband and my mom are back with my younger daughter. And we're just kind of getting going. And I'm wanting a little bit of room around me because the son that is on the bike behind me is one of those like kind of beefy kids. And if he throws his weight, the whole bike like totally waves and moves to the side. So I'm like, I just need a little bit of space. I just want to get going and practice a little bit and get comfortable before, see what the tresses are like because he really throws his weight and I just wanted a bit of space from the group. So some of the kids are riding ahead with my dad. I'm there with my youngest, and my husband is back at the trailhead with my younger daughter and my mom. And they're not coming. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, so we wait for a bit, we ride a little bit more. and they're not coming. And I'm like, what is going on? Where are they? So I double back to find out what's going on, and my daughter won't get on the bike. She has not pedaled at all, and she's full on sobbing. And no matter what type of bribery, what type of like emotional support, my husband has tried everything, and he's good. Like, he knows how to work with kids. He's worked with kids professionally. We have a lot of kids. He's emotionally available, and he's super good with our kids. And he is having no success. So I'm looking at this, and he's thinking, like, this is it. She's not riding. She can't walk. Like, I'll just have to walk with her is what he's thinking. And there's like this part of me that just, I don't know, some reason was relentless about this. I was like, no, we are doing this, and we are all riding. So we unhook the trailer bike from my bike. We hook it up to my husband's bike, and I'm like, you go ahead, you catch the other boys, you catch the girl on the crank bike, and my dad, we're going to get there. So I'm talking to my daughter, and she's sobbing. She is in a full anxious moment. She cannot calm down, and she is so worked up about having to ride. And because I had missed the first part of the conversation, I'm not really sure why. But I know that we haven't had time to practice, and she wasn't really a strong bike rider. She was kind of like me. She could do it, but she wasn't really strong or confident on her bike, and it was still a relatively new thing to be biking. And I don't know if it was just being up in the mountains and seeing the trestles. I don't know if it was the combination. I think mostly it was the not feeling 100% confident that she would be able to start and stop on her own. And my mom is there with me, remember? And my mom is this phenomenal, nurturing woman. And one of the roles that she had, especially I think when she was growing up, was to make sure everything was okay and to make sure that people are taken care of. She is a caretaker, and it is beautiful. And she's trying to caretake in this situation. So she keeps telling me, it's okay, we'll just stay here. Why don't you go, and I'll just stay with the daughter. You go, have a good time. And I'm like, no, you guys came because you want to ride. And one of the things that I felt like as a mom is that I noticed my mom would always stay back, and my dad would do all the fun activities. And for myself as a parent, I was just adamant that I was not going to do that. And I think that's one of the things that happens when we start raising our own family. We look at our family of origin and we say, oh, I want to take this and I want to take that, but I'm going to leave this and I'm going to leave that. And the reason why we do that is because there's things from our family of origin that we really loved. And then there's things from our family of origin that we really didn't love. So we sort it out when we try to create our own family, and we try to be intentional. So I knew for myself that that was something that I didn't want to do. I also didn't want my mom to miss out on something that I knew she was looking forward to. She also wanted to ride the trestles. So I said to my mom, I said, no, we're not doing that. This girl is going to ride her bike. And I talked to my daughter, and you know when you talk to your kids and they're freaking out and they don't want to do something, but you know that they actually do want to do something? You can tell whether you ask them and they're able to say it, or you can just read in them because you know them that there's a part of them that really does want to ride, even though there's a part of them that is very scared or very anxious and does not want to get on the bike. And we didn't have a lot of time to be deep diving into this thing, into what was causing the anxiety or where was the fear coming from. But I knew that we needed to get her on the bike. So I said to her, I said, look, I know that this is something that you've been wanting to do. And she's nodding. And I said, we're not going to think about how far we have to ride or how long this is. You're just going to get on and you're going to do 3 pedals. So I'm like telling my mom, go ahead, we'll be there. And she's kind of just like waiting. So my daughter gets on and I'm like running behind her like this. It's like I'm teaching her to ride her bike on the side of a mountain. So I'm running, I'm holding her seat, and she's screaming and crying, "Don't let go. Don't let go." My bike is like on the side, laying down. It's hot, right? Because we're in the Myra Canyon is like part of that desert stream. So it is warm, and I'm running after her. I'm like, "Okay, 3 pedals." And she's screaming, "Don't let go." So I'm like, "I'm not gonna let go." So I'm running after her, not letting her go. And then she stops. I run, I grab my bike and bring my bike a bit farther. I say, "Okay, this time I want you to do 5 pedals." So each time we just kept adding a few more pedals, a few more rotations before we'd stop. And then I'd be running beside her and I'm saying, "You're doing it by yourself. I'm not even holding on to you. Look at you go." This is how we did the first half of the Myra Canyon. I would run beside her or hold her thing, yelling at her how many pedals she could do. And then I would run back and get my bike and I'd ride up to where she is. I ran back and forth. I would run back, grab my bike, ride forward, run with her. And I was sweating profusely. But every time she did a few rotations on the pedals, she got more confident and she got more calm. You see, I knew that this was a battle that we had to win. Because if I let her anxiety run the show on our trip, that girl never would have ridden. It would have prevented her. But I also knew just telling her to calm down and get on the bike and ride wasn't going to work. You see, she couldn't access that part of her brain to calm down. When you say to a kid, "Calm down," they don't know how to do that. Because if they knew how to do that, they would often do it. So we as parents have to figure out how to articulate to them what it is that they need to do. And we have to make sure that it's in bite-sized portions so that they can actually do it. It's like when you give kids directions. Certain age groups can handle one thing. Other age groups can handle 2 directions in a row. Some can handle 3 directions in a row. And depending on the kid's capacity, depending on the kid's situation, is the amount that they can handle in terms of instructions. If you don't know what I'm talking about, test it out. See how many instructions in a list you can give to your kids. Things like go to the door would be 1. Go to the door and put your shoes on would be 2. Go to the door, put your shoes on and your coat on, go outside and get in the car. That's 5. Some kids can only get to 1. Some kids can get to 5, but it depends on age. So check it out and see what your kids can do. But when they are anxious, what they're normally able to do decreases. So we have to be able to break it down into bite-sized steps so that they can have success. And I knew that this was one of those battles that we had to win because what fear does, what anxiety does, is it makes your world smaller. And if my daughter learned on that trip that she actually can't bike ride on the trestles, that she can't get on her bike, that she can't push through fear, that would be something that would sit deep inside her and start transferring to other areas of her life. Whereas winning that battle expands her life. She now knows that she can do things even though she's scared. Because here's the reality about anxiety. Here's the reality about fear. We all experience it. Our kids all experience it in different magnitudes and in different ways. It's always there. And when we teach ourselves that when we feel that, to run away, we will continue to feel that and it'll continue to push on us and it gets more and more smothering and it eats away at our world until our world gets very small and very dark. Whereas when we learn that even though we feel scared, we can push through it, when we get that feeling of fear, it doesn't cripple us. It's a reminder, oh yeah, I know what to do. Keep moving, keep breathing, keep pushing against this thing so that it doesn't take away. Do you want to know what she said? was the best part of our holiday. Because we didn't just ride. The riding, like I said, we had to change the camping riding piece. So the riding was just one day of our holiday, which was about a week. We had done some swimming. We did lots of things. We met up with friends. We were with my parents for part of it. Do you know what the best thing was for her? Hands down, the best part of her trip was riding the trestles. Now, remember, she spent the first portion of it, the first 20 minutes, crying and screaming. Then she spent the next portion of it very scared, still crying and riding her bike in small pedal increments. But that was the best part of her trip because she felt so good. There's nothing like the rush of feeling like you can do something, especially when you thought you couldn't, and then you discover that you can. It grows you. It builds your confidence. It increases your excitement. And there's so much satisfaction and joy that comes from doing hard things. So when we went around the table to ask everybody, what did you like about the trip? What were your most favorite memories? That was what was hers. And it was mine too. Seeing her smile when she was riding back. So we ride the whole way down. Then she's riding back on her own, confident, and she is grinning ear to ear. Seeing her little face, that was amazing. We've created a handout for you, and if you go to the show notes, you can check it out. It's all about ways to work with stress and anxiety so that they do not cripple you. Because there's two ways you can approach it. You can look at ways to increase peace, and you can look at ways to decrease anxiety. And we do both. That's where we get the most success. So if you want to get your hands on that handout, go to the show notes. It is a freebie for you that we've created. And if you've been in an experience like I have described today, where you had to be the support person to help your kid overcome anxiety or someone else in your life, I would love to hear from you. Send me an email and describe what was going on. Or if you feel like you don't know what to do, feel free to send me an email. I'd love to share my thoughts, because that's why I'm creating this podcast. It is important to me to offer resources to people that can really make a difference, not only in their lives, but in the lives of their family members. Because we are all in this together, and we all have giftings and strengths. And when we share our giftings and our strengths, everybody can benefit, and it can be richer for everybody. Anxiety is absolutely horrendous to deal with. And when you have a loved one who is working through anxiety, it can be very taxing. And as a parent, we can want to just rescue them. Just, no, you don't have to ride. It's okay. We can come back and do it another time, and just rescue them that out of the situation. Because that feeling of being rescued feels really good. You feel loved and safe and supportive. And when you're feeling anxious, that's what you want. You want to feel safe and supported. But pushing through that anxiety and having my daughter have the confidence, that was so rewarding, way more rewarding than that feeling of comfort. She had to push through that discomfort in order to get that feeling of confidence. And that confidence is way more rewarding than the rescue and the hug. Because when we did hug after, it was a hug of celebration. But it's tough work. It is tough work parenting, and it is tough work supporting people that are feeling scared or anxious. If this resonated with you, I would love if you would rate and subscribe to my show. It means so much to me that you share this and that you give us a good rating, because when you do that for me, then I'm able to do more of this, and I'm able to share this with more people. This podcast is intended to be information. It's intended to be entertainment. It's not supposed to substitute for professional advice. And anxiety is real. And if you need help, I would please encourage you to consult with a qualified professional in your area that you can share the particulars of your situation with, because we all need help at different times. Thank you so much for tuning in. It has been an honor to share this story. Even though it was so difficult in those first few minutes, and I felt like a bad mom telling my daughter she was going to ride, even though she was crying and freaking out, it was worth it. It was so worth pushing through that, because it was also uncomfortable for me. And it is still to this day one of her favorite trips that she likes to reflect on. Thanks.